Our rivals qualified much quicker than us for the few recent races, but we were able to win this race because our setup was good and we got everything perfect. We also had enough stamina and car weight to allow our driver to push as hard as possible, which is going to make us faster for this race. For the past few races, we were a few points of car weight short for being allowed to do this. You can see that we had a similar pace to our rival and we were not losing time, and we're doing one less pit stop than Marge's. You can see that Ethan was quite close to us in the race. He lost this race because he chose to do a one pit stop. You can see that he had enough fuel to do one pit stop, but he gave his car a bit less fuel at the end. If he gave his car enough fuel, he would be the closest finishing to us, which is 17 seconds or so. You can see that our base lap was about 1 second quicker than others, which is a bit more than what I expected. And Marge's was a bit slower than normal for this race because Ethan is potentially able to finish 30 seconds slower than us if he chooses to do his pit stop correctly. We can see that we were top 90 quickest out of the people in the same class. You can also see at the end of the season our driver lose a bit of some points for stats, and our driver didn't make any mistakes for this race even though we're pushing harder, so that's very good. You can see at this point we got 15 million in our balance after this race, but after all of the bonuses add up from the end of the season, we have $34 million left. And if we look at the bonuses and where we got that money from, we won the cup for our group, which gives us 600k, and finishing first gives us 6 million, and the points gave us another 7 million, and doing all races get us 5 millions, and our team points gave us about 1 million, so that's a lot of money. You can see that we made 2 offers to sign a driver. We didn't make a third offer or set a higher price because we found out last time there's actually two staff decisions at the start of the season, but we're doing the qualifying quite short, that's why we couldn't see the time. We used this calculated tool and we copied drivers' stats into our Excel calculator, and we made a decision based on this, and we gave an offer to this driver, which we were able to sign, and it has a 50-point difference between the other drivers, and about 10 points is equivalent to losing 1 kilogram. But we can see it's a bit more expensive, about 600k per race more. But you know from last season, 30 points or so, or 25 points is worth a lot of performance and much quicker in the race, so it actually makes sense to get a faster driver because the car parts doesn't get you much in the race. The second offer we made was for Patrick Idrick, but obviously it wasn't our first choice. At the time of the bidding, there were 4 offers on Patrick and 2 on the driver we made an offer for. You can see that our driver has much better concentration and a lot more stats everywhere, but he's 4 kgs more, but that adds up to 50 points extra for performance. We're not sure why the other driver with such poor stats, many people bid on him. Potentially he's a bit lower in weight, that's why he was hot in the market. And for the calculation, we changed it a bit. We went from a 0.7 rating to 0.58 for the talent to make the talent more important. Then we put a cap on the stamina points to be about 45 points. And we reduced the weighting a bit. And 45 points is about 80 stamina. And we know at about 80 stamina you have enough stamina to push very hard. And if you push any harder, there's a high chance the car parts might break, so it won't go any quicker. That's why we limited the max points we allow for stamina to be 45. And then we changed the weighting for weight to 10 points to 11.5, because for amateur class drivers they have much more points in everything, so being able to be more consistent will give you a less increase in lap time. So we want to look at the weight a little bit more. And then we reduce the weighting for aggressiveness a little bit more. You can see because this driver is already signed, we can't see the stats anymore, but it was the same as what I showed in the Excel spreadsheet. And we can see the driver we have now. Great stats, low weight, and it's definitely going to be worth the extra money spent. And then a trick for amateur class is that we can look at the manager staff, and we can see a lot of drivers, their overall is above 110, which is the maximum allowed. And we can see they were signed last season. And the reason for this is that if you look at the GPRO rules carefully, unless you depromote or regulate to a lower class, you're able to keep your driver regardless of the overall. So what they do is that you go to the driver contract before the overall is above 110, and then we're going to extend it by 17 races. So if we're able to stay in this season and not depromote, next season we'll have a super fast driver and we're going to be guaranteed a promotion. And then we're going to do the fitness training as we usually do to reduce the weight, because it's going to gain us a lot of time. If we look at the race results for the track we did, the wear was the same as the calculated tool, and the tire wear was similar to what our calculated tool suggested. And when we look at the lap times, you can see that our driver was a little bit faster at the end of the race because our car weight compensation is still a little bit high. Our car performance ranked top 6 for the race we did, but we still won by a reasonable lead because we had the fastest driver, and our Q1 was 1 second slower than our rivals, including Q2. Our qualifying was top 500 out of 2,500 qualified, and we saw this trend for the past few races that we're not so fast in qualifying, but we always win the race. Because our compensation was a bit too much, we're going to reduce it by 5%, and that is about 0.36. If we look at the car wear, we can see it resets to 0 at the end of the season. And we still have 3 car points from the start of the season. And we didn't do any more testing after that. So that's still quite a bit of points. If we look at the sponsor negotiation, we're able to get this sponsor after we promote. And have a generous amount of 540k and a long duration of 50 races, and that's a lot of money. You can see this sponsor has the same country of origin compared to some of the other sponsor, because potentially we had this DS on for quite a long time. That's why we're able to get this other sponsor too. Chose to negotiate with this sponsor because no one has made any progress yet, and when we look at the available sponsors, virtually everyone is being taken already. So even if we go to this one, you can see that the sponsors that are easy to negotiate with are virtually all taken. And when we look at these two sponsors which no one is negotiating with, they have very poor rating and finance, so we're probably not going to get much money from it. So we're going to negotiate with this one because the stats are great. You can see our staff level drops a bit. I think for the amateur class we get about 10 skills in this stress and things, but since we didn't train or do anything, it keeps dropping. But the staff salary drops a bit because of the lower skills. But all of this doesn't really matter. And I still think even with a level 9 pit stop training is a bit too high. We don't really need so much expensive facilities. We're gonna do testing for our car. And we're choosing this no priority to gain balance stats for our car. We entered the car wear into our calculator tool. We then entered the fuel, laps and the tire wear. And we get the max laps to be 37, 38 or so. And it will require 120 liters of fuel. I'm gonna enter the values and do testing. We can see for the testing standings, a lot of people have a lot of money, but only 11 managers have done testing. You can also see the wear on the car part is quite low for this track, so it's much more efficient during testing for this track. We can see more than half of the grid have more than $30 million. And we can see a lot of top contenders that depromoted from pro, that's why they have a lot of money. When we look at car level, we are at the back of the pack. The last season we already saw that with the correct driver, even with a level 4 car, we can beat level 5 rivals. For our new driver, we have to look at the happy range because it's different from the old one. And we enter the value into our calculator tool. And we look at the track that we're going to do. And we also had a look at the past results. You can see the optimum is a 2 pit stop, but 1-2 would work. And the calculator tool suggests that we should do a 1 pit stop. Our driver stamina is a bit lower, so we want to reduce the risk a bit. If we use a 28 risk, the clay track risk will be about 28. going to use this 28 for the car weight calculation. We enter it into our calculator tool. You can also see the car weight was a bit lower in testing and for the race because our driver has very high concentration and talent, and that will save us a lot of money throughout the season. And if we look at the track temperature, it's going to be about 29. If we use the soft tires, we won't have much tire wear left, and we may not make it to the end because we still need to add a 6% offset for extra wear, because that's the actual tire wear we would see in the race. But if we look at one stop hard, we can have a bit more tire wear. The two stop medium isn't going to utilize the tires as much and it's going to be slower. And we know this track is either 1 or 2 pit stop will have similar results. We will want to do a 39-38 lap pit stop to have 2 extra total laps. We also changed our tire calculation tool a bit so it's a bit easier to see. And we applied the offset of 5% because that's what we see last season. And then we entered the wear for 38 and 37 laps, so you can double check that we have the correct wear values. And you can see this 210 is wear per lap. You can see this track is normal overtaking, so it can be a bit difficult, so you want to offset the pit stop a bit more because you have more than enough tire wear. If we do 40 and 37 laps, that should be optimum. We entered the fuel for this 38-37 laps, and so you can also double check to see we have the correct values. And we want to do 40 and 37 laps, and we would see that our tire would have 20 and 26% left. If we look at the soft tires and we apply the offset, it can be 7.5 and up to 3.6% tire wear left, and we need to do minimum 26 laps. And we know that with a different driver, the calculated tool may not be that accurate. And last season we found out about 1.1 is the maximum offset that we can potentially see, and it's a very high tire wear. It will increase our chances of tire puncture and we wouldn't finish, so it's definitely not enough margin to be able to finish the race. We're gonna find the setup for the race. We're going to find the wing split. We reduced about 100 wing split, we got 239, and we reduced by another 100, we got the 407. So I know it's somewhere in between the 7th and 8th lap. So you can add 10 points to this lap 7 wing split, and it should be the optimum one. We're gonna do qualifying. Surprisingly, our driver did very well in qualifying, but we can also see his max mistake was only 0.6, which is much lower than our previous driver. We entered the setup for Q2, and we entered the fuel for 40 laps. Considering we are using a high fuel load, we did 15th in Q1 and we dropped 2 places in Q2, so that's a very good qualifying time. If we look at top 10 lap time, Q1 we're 1.5 slower, Q2 we're 2.1, so very consistent, and that's a good indicator. If we look at all qualified managers, we are top 1700 out of 2200, so not superb in qualifying, but we also used a higher fuel load to do a 1-stop. We entered the setup for the race. We entered the fuel and we're going to make our driver boost at the end of the race, which is lap 71. We reduce our driver risk to 28, which should get us 28 CTR, which is what we used for the calculated tool, and this was based upon our previous driver.